How do we sit?
Pak Tigor sini.
Sini? Okay.
Saya. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Good. Selamat pagi. And
Pagi.
welcome to this the first session of today's event. I'm very honored today with Pak Hiramsyah and Pak Tigor. We will discuss something, the topic of lending to tourism, the bank financing and the alternatives. All right, I've got a few slides before I introduce the two gentlemen. The first one is in the competitiveness index. In the 2017 graph by the World Economic Forum, Indonesia is now ranked 42 in the competitiveness index. Has risen from number 50 last 2015 and 2017 is becoming number 42. That shows Indonesia is more competitive in the global world. In the ease of doing business in Indonesia, we are ranked number 72 out of 190 countries. We have risen from rank 91 last year, 2016, and now we are ranked number 72. In the tourism sector, as we know, the government is really putting a lot of efforts and making tourism as one of the significant pillars of the economy. The government has introduced 10 new destinations. Actually, there are many more than 10 new destinations. There are many more destinations in Indonesia. Among of them are special economic zone in the tourism industry. Of course, when the government is boosting, opening new destinations, which Indonesia needs, we're talking about investment. And when we talk about investment, we're talking about financing. Nobody is going to develop based on its own equity. There should be a plan how to exit, a plan to entry, and a plan to exit also at the end of the day. So, this is the 3 or 4 special economic zones in the tourism. There are 4, 3 already launched, 1 is going to be launched soon. There will be a lot of benefits, incentives given to the developer, those who participate in the special economic zone for tourism, including the permits, including the tax, traffic of goods, workforce, immigration, and so on and so forth. So a lot of incentives are given to the tourism investor in the special economic zone. Now, in the last 1 or 2 weeks, we have seen also a lot of publicity. A lot of publicity regarding financing, how the government is really serious in boosting financing, boosting investment, and providing financing scheme to the industry. We have seen last week only, the OJK, the Authority for Financial Services, is ready to support the tourism industry, including from the banking sector, capital market, and from the non-bank financial institution. They're not only traditional banking instruments, but we're talking also about the Dana Investasi Infrastructure, which is the investment fund for infrastructure. The Reksadana, RDPT, or DRE, or in the Real Estate Investment Trust, in the global terms. Blended finance and municipal bonds. What are those? Those are cooking from the government's point of view. Again, the bank is being given also flexibility. Instead of 20% maximum lending ratio, now it's increased to 30% for lending to tourism. So a lot of things are going on. The government's doing a lot of things. Indonesia is serious, but let's hear. So today we are very honored to have the two gentlemen here. Let me give a few highlights again regarding our speaker today. First is Pak Hiramsyah Thaib. He is the head of the acceleration team for priority developments, tourism destinations in Indonesia. Pak Hiramsyah is a complete person. He's been in banking, he's been in capital market, he's been a property developer, he's been a president of a resort company. Now he's with the government. And I know he's been very involved in a lot of negotiation, doing a lot of constructing policies. Let's hear from him. So that's what Pak Hiramsyah today. We're very happy, Pak, to have you here. And so next to him is Pak Tigor M.Siahaan. Pak Tigor is the president of CIMB Niaga. CIMB Niaga is one of the most active banks that is giving attention to the tourism sector. They know about the industry. They've got a specific team to cater for this industry. And I think let's hear also from Pak Tigor, what's his view regarding the lending to tourism. And after a few questions, I will throw some questions. I will give a question and answer to the audience. Let's have this session very meaningful and fun and be interactive. Okay, let's start, ladies and gentlemen. Pak Hiramsyah, we know that a lot of things are, I just mentioned, a lot of things are going on for the financing and to supporting the tourism industry. Can you share with us what is really going on inside the tourism, inside the government, in this case, inside of tourism ministry? Please.
Thank you, Pak Budi. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry that I'm not in a good health. I have a bad cold because of we are not enough sleep. Even my minister just only sleep 4 hours every day, just to give the best contributions to the country, especially from the tourism sector's point of view. Okay, let me start with what we call it, the CEO commitment. If we talk about the today government of Indonesia, if we talk about Pak Jokowi, the government of Indonesia is already, what we call it, specifically mentions that it is only 3 sectors that will be the focus of the Indonesian government. Number 1 is agriculture, number 2 is tourism, and number 3 is maritime, including fishery. I think this is the best one compared to our previous government before. Before, you know, Indonesia, too many things that we want to do, but nothing happened. But now the government of Indonesia try to be more focused. We try to define which sectors that is good for Indonesia. We cannot talk too many sectors, and then the government of Indonesia is not really focused about this. So why that, let's start with this. The tourism sector of Indonesia is already one of the 3 sectors by the government. This means that if we talk about the tourism sector of Indonesia, it's not only the responsibility of the Ministry of the Tourism. It is the responsibility of our president. It is the responsibility of all ministry. Let's talk or make it simple. Let's talk or make it simple with the 3A philosophy of the tourism ecosystem. The 3A philosophy of the 3A ecosystem is number 1 is attractions, number 2 is accessibility, and the last one is amenities. If we talk about the tourism sector of Indonesia, our biggest issue is accessibility. I think that all of you, sorry that forgot to, there is a lot of old friends here. Yeah, I know that there's Charlie over there, Pario, hi, Levi. There's a lot of old friends here. So if we talk about the 3A philosophy of the tourism ecosystem, one of the biggest issue is accessibility or especially air infrastructure. And I think everybody knows that if we talk about the government of Indonesia, in the last 3 years, the government of Indonesia worked very hard to improve our infrastructures, especially the airport. For example, like Toba, we just only less than 1 year reactivate the Silangit airport. Today, if you want to go to the Toba Lakes, one of the biggest lake in the world, it's just only less than 3 hours from Jakarta. 2-hour flight from Jakarta to Silangit airport, and then less than 1 hour from Silangit airport to Toba Lake. But 3 years ago, when you want to go there, you have to spend maybe more than 6 hours because of the traffic jams. You have to fly 2 hours from Jakarta or Singapore to the Kuala Namu Medan, and then you have to spend 5 to 6 hour drive from Medan to Silangit airport. I think this is the good things of Indonesia. Let me start with what we call it, the Indonesian tourism performance to make you more confident with us. I know that this is not a easy job for us, but for me, because of I spent almost 17 years with the Bakri Group, this is more easier. Okay, let's start with the Indonesian tourism performance. This is, I already mentioned to you, the CEO commitment. Pak Jokowi already mentions that I declare tourism as the leading sector. Tourism as a leading sector is a good news, and all other ministry must support the tourism development. So why that we reactivate, build so many new airports very fast? Because of the support from the Ministry of Transportation. Why that we build so many toll roads very fast? Because of the support from the Ministry of Public Work. I think this is the beauty of the government of Indonesia today. Our coordinations, our collaboration is totally better compared to the previous government. This I already mentioned to you, agriculture, tourism, and maritime, including fishery. Yeah, this is, I think you already know about this. Indonesia, especially the tourism sector, is the top 20 fastest growing travel destination in the world. This is based on the telegraphs in November 2017. From the growth stories point of view, Indonesia grew 22%, Asian average growth is 7%, and the world growth is just only 6.4%. If we talk more details about the Asian country, Indonesia 22, Vietnam 29, Malaysia is minus because of, we know about the issue of Malaysian Airlines. Singapore just growth 6%, and Thailand is growth almost 9%. This is from the foreign exchange currencies point of view, the Indonesian TTCI's performance index that Pak Budi already mentions. This is, we're working very details and very professionals because of, I have to open to you why the tourism sectors of Indonesia growth very fast in the last 3 years, because of not only myself, but the Ministry of Tourism now led by Pak Arif Yahya, the Minister of Tourism. His background is the former CEO of PT Telkom Indonesia. He's the best CEO of the state-owned company of Indonesia in 2012. It's not only Arif Yahya, it's not only myself. We bring in all the professionals into the ministry. There is a lot of former professionals from Garuda Indonesia, from Angkasa Pura, from you name it. So why that we can move very fast in terms of growth and in terms of how to really understand the market and our customers. I don't want to, this is the Thursday philosophy, yeah, but I think that this is just some brief informations, Pak Budi, Pak Tigor, how that the government of Indonesia, especially the Ministry of Tourism, working very seriously about the tourism sector. This is maybe the last slide before back to Pak Budi or Pak Tigor. The Ministry of Tourism of Indonesia, we have what that we call it the top 10 priority program of the Ministry of Tourism in 2018. The number one is Go Digital. We working very closely with all the top players in the world. We working together with Alibaba. We working together with Alitrip. We working together with Google's. We working together with all the top best players in the world. So why that we can maintain our growth story above the other country. Number two is homestay. Number three is air accessibility. We improve our competitiveness in air accessibility. For example, like Jakarta Airport, now is already in the construction for the third runway. If we talk about the Bali Airport, because of the Bali is queuing, now we talk about the open, the more 5 hectares apron, especially for the annual meeting World Bank IMF in October 2018. And then you can see from the branding PI point of view, I have to be open with you, why that the branding of Wonderful Indonesia now is number 47, above the Truly Asia number 85 and Amazing Thailand number 80 something, because of we working together with the Ogilvy. We always want to working together with the best party in the world. This is, I think, the story that why that we can maintain a full speed growth story in the last 3 years from now. I think this is just some brief information, Pak Budi, because of before we discuss more details about the tourism sector, especially from the financing point of view.
Okay, thank you, Pak Hiramsyah. You said, Pak Hiramsyah, you don't have enough sleep right? And I heard from people you sleep at 1 o'clock in the morning, even with Pak Arif also. I don't know whether you're doing your own business or you're doing some things for the government.
For this one.
And you're also the head of the acceleration team. Yes. It means you want to accelerate development. You want to make things faster. Yes. The speed is very important. Now, looking at the Indonesia needs destinations, of course, right? We need investors. We need tourism to develop. And then, as I said, financing is one of the challenge. Not the challenge, is the one that's needed.
Yes.
With the change of policy and everything of the government, I mean, the current situation. First of all, are you happy with the speed of the acceleration of the new destinations in Indonesia? And how can you share with us what are you cooking at the moment with the government?
Thank you, Pak Budi. Happy just only for a moment because of sky's the limit. I think that this is in line with Manav's presentations. Today, we talk about not the big eat or beat the small, but the fast beat or eat the slow. So why that my duty is the acceleration team. We welcome to the digital century, that everything will go very, very fast. From the financing point of view, because of I spent 9 years as a banker with Bank Niaga before the Asian monetary crisis in '98, and then 17 years as a CEO in the Bakri Groups. I'm the former CEO for Bakri Lands, a public listed company. And at that time, maybe more, almost 50% of my shareholders is foreign investors. I'm very familiar with all the biggest fund in the world. Fidelity is one of my investors. The government of Singapore Investment Corporation at that time have almost 2% of the Bakri Land shares, you name it. Yeah. So I know very well what they're looking for to have an appetite to invest in, especially here in Indonesia. This is that we try to convincing, especially internally, our government. The beauty of the government of Indonesia now, that we're working very closely. We just finished meeting last week with the governor of Central Bank of Indonesia. As Pak Budi already mentioned, with the chairman of the OJK, the Financial Authority of Indonesia. It's very simple. They're asking me, they're asking Pak Arif Yahya, what kind of support that you need from us. So why that last week I goes to Pak Tigor office, met with maybe almost 15 officers from CIMB Niaga. I went to so many banks to get feedbacks from the customer. What that the CIMB Niaga, for example, they need to make their appetites for investment or financing for the tourism sector. We know that the tourism sector is not, today is not as sexy as compared to the other sectors. But we believe with all this performance and the others experience in the other countries, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, the tourism sectors basically is a very sexy sector, especially when we talk about what we call it, the lifestyles sectors today. Everything attached with the lifestyle will be very sexy today. So we try to make our condition, Pak. There is a DINFRA, a lot of what we call it, products, a lot of deregulations the government want to provide to make the financing is more easier. Yeah, because of, there is two things, especially today when the currency of rupiah is like roller coaster. The government really understand that we need foreign exchange revenue from outside, from two things. Number one is tourism, especially from the foreign visitors, and number two from FDI, the foreign direct investment. So why does the government of Indonesia working very hard with the BKPM, with all the government's officials, to make our FDI is better and better? You see our competitive index, Pak. Yeah.
Okay, we'll hold you there.
Yes.
Now I'm going to go to Pak Tigor. Pak Tigor, you are the CEO of a bank, CIMB Niaga, who is one of the most active bank that is lending to tourism. What is your view regarding the government policy on this, regarding the development on tourism industry? Is it on the right track? How do you see it from the banking perspective? Please.
Okay, thanks, Budi. By the way, sorry I don't have any slides, so that's why I gained 1 more hour of sleep versus yours. So I got 5 hours of sleep last night. But I think it's encouraging to see what Hiramsyah has laid down the table here in terms of what the initiatives the government's doing, what kind of progress that they're making, what kind of uptick in terms of the tourists coming to Indonesia over the past 3-4 years. It's unprecedented, this kind of growth. As you rightly pointed out, I mean, we're the second largest private bank in Indonesia, and property, including tourism, property, hotels, and so forth, are probably one of our biggest focus in the portfolio. So that's been sort of the DNA since Hiramsyah, you were there many years ago. That's been in the DNA of the Niaga sort of DNA. So it's been carried out all throughout. So we've been very active in many financing opportunities, whether in obviously Jakarta area or Bali and other areas. And what we see is there's a lot of movement also, given the push from the government to diversify away from Bali, of interest of going to different areas rather than just completely Bali focused. And what we see here is many opportunities out there by current investors and also wannabe investors in the sector, because people are looking at this as a potential sexy industry going forward. So from us, again, banks follow the trade. So we look at this trend, we look at this opportunity, and we're siding obviously with our existing clients, but we continue to look for opportunistic chances for us to partner with different types of investors going forward as well.
Okay, so your view is positive, and you are pro-lending to tourism or to hotels?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been in this business, for 60-something years, and again, as I said, property, including tourism, has been a focus for us. Obviously, not everything ends up in a happy ending. There's many stories in banking, and I'm sure especially in '98 and everything. But I think there's a lot of lessons learned that we've had in all these years. And I think, given all these lessons learned, we're pretty much know exactly, what kind of, not every tourism obviously is bankable, right? I mean, those guys do, who's been doing, maybe pharmacy all his life, all of a sudden, you know what, I want to build a hotel and I want a 90% financing. Probably not the best idea. But a guy who's been doing this, who's been in the industry for many years, but they might want to expand to different types of destinations, different types of things, we're very happy to support. So, obviously it depends on the characters, depends on the situations, but we're very bullish on the sector.
Okay, thank you. Let's get a bit more specific. Pak Tigor, is location a central consideration for a bank to give lending?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The location that you would choose, I think it's easy. Then we'd lend. Pak Budi's eyes are very good. But absolutely, we've been obviously we've been stuck in some situations where we think that projections are always good, right? Nobody comes to a bank with the projections that's lousy. At least I haven't seen it. But projection is always good. It's always rosy. It's always going up. No projections I've seen goes like this. Every projection goes like that, right? But aside from location, obviously the dynamics of the supply and demand in that area is very important. The dynamics again of the sponsor and their commitment in the projects is very important. The ability of the sponsor through tough times and bad times to persevere is very important. Hotel is a very long-term investment. You don't make up your investment back in 2-3 years. It's a long-term investment, and you got to be able to follow the ups and downs, right? And we've seen it in many instances. So we're okay with situations when things, let's say for example, there's Gunung Agung, there's always thing about Gunung Agung, its eruption, and all this kind of stuff. But for players that's been in the industry for a long time, I mean, it's never going to be rosy all the time. So we understand that, we get that. But those guys that persevere through all these cycles are the guys that are very bankable.
Here in this room, there are a few developers, a few potential investors, a few operators that I see my friends here, a few consultants. Is a selection of a hotel operator is playing a big consideration in the view of the bank?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, the dynamics, especially, see, we do construction loan as well from scratch, right? So, you know, having the right operator, having the right, again, experience, and it's very common. I shouldn't say this out loud because people might take advantage of it, but there's a lot of cost overruns. And whatever budget that you predict, it goes beyond. So again, when these cost overruns happens, for example, the sponsor's commitment is very, very important, right? And again, the operator relationship with the sponsor is very, very important. We've seen some situations where, you know, they talk a big game, big operators come, experience and whatnot, but halfway throughout, they pull out. So, and then another operator comes in that's probably a different quality. And the risk is different. The target market might be different. The profile is going to be different. So those kind of things are very much into the consideration.
Okay, thank you. So, as we can see, Pak Hiramsyah is trying to open new destinations and from the banking perspective, especially a commercial bank, you follow the trade, the banking follow the trade. So how and then usually the bank prefers to give loans to areas which are quite developed, right? And this new destination is still to be developed. So that's why there's a gap. And if you want to speed up the development, there has to be something to bridge that one, right? And Pak Hiramsyah, we touched regarding the DINFRA or the reksadana penempatan terbatas, or the blended financing, which I think I just hear it also recently, and the municipal bonds, obligasi daerah. Can you elaborate a little bit more regarding these instruments and whether it's really reachable by the potential investor, our friends here, please?
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Budi. I want to remind that the government strategy is to build what we call it the 10 New Bali. This is, we want to copy the success story of Nusa Dua Bali, 30 years ago. So we try to build another Nusa Dua, the 10 new Nusa Dua. And it's already give a significant proven and performance. For example, like Belitung. Belitung is not far from Jakarta. Now, if you go there, especially during the weekend, the hotel occupancy is already almost 100%. It's in the last 2 years, it's already opened 3 new hotels. The Santika, Marriott, I forgot the last one. It's very strategic because of the location. It's just only 45 minutes flight from Jakarta and 45 minutes flight from Singapore. It's not only the weekend getaway, but weekdays getaway too, for MICE, company meetings, etc., etc. Back to the 10 New Bali strategy. Number 1, we offer what that we call it the special economic zone status. Under the special economic zone status, the government will guarantee the land title issues, will guarantee all the permits, will guarantee everything that this is not happened here in Indonesia for many years. Number 2, the government will guarantee to provide infrastructures, especially air accessibility. I am the property guys in the last 30 years. I always said to everybody, Pak Tigor, Pak Budi already mentions location. Yes. Number 1 is prime locations, number 2 is prime locations, number 3 is prime locations. What is the meaning of prime locations? Accessibility. I always said, who can control the accessibility can control the property value. So this is the approach that the government of Indonesia did. We really understand if we want to build the new destinations, the number 1 is accessibility. I think. The number 3, after we talk about the 10 Bali strategy and then the special economic zone status with so many incentives from the government, not only from the infrastructures providing point of view, but fiscal, non-fiscal incentive. There is a tax, what do we call it, tax incentives, etc. And number 3, Pak Budi, I think the government of Indonesia will provide so many, what do we call it, products of financing to bridging the gap, as already mentioned to you. Okay. Even the government of Indonesia have PINA now. PINA is their responsibility to give what they call it the equity financing. That's, I think, the beauty of the government of Indonesia, because we bring in all the professionals. Yes, so the mindsets is not only from the government point of view, but we really want to understand what the customer, what the investors need from the government of Indonesia.
I'd like to go a bit deeper on that. I hope you don't mind. The magic word of what you just said is guarantee. That's a magic word, and it's a heavy word, guarantee. Yes. You know, I put myself, I want to invest in one of the new destinations, right? Yeah. But there is no toll road, for example.
Yes.
It's a chicken and egg.
Yes.
I said to the developer, once the toll road is ready, and then I will invest.
Yes.
And then the developer said, look, the government is doing the toll road. So this is chicken and egg situation. Yes. You said something regarding the guarantee. Yes. Can you elaborate to us what kind of guarantee that is?
Okay. If we talk about Indonesia, now we already the investment grade status, right, Tigor, from S&P, from Moody's, and from Fitch. Okay, so there is no issues from the investment ratings point of view. But still, there is some, what do we call it, the investors worried about, I have to be frank with you, what do we call it, the legal uncertainty. Change of the governments, change of the government's officials, and then change the regulations. Now we are working to provide what we call it the sovereign warranty, provided by the PII. PII is Penjaminan Infrastruktur Indonesia. This is the subsidiary of the Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia. They will provide what we call it the sovereign warranty. What is the sovereign warranty means? To guarantee the uncertainty of the regulation. For example, like this. Today, we want to make the decisions about the investment. The assessment is good because of all these assumptions, A, B, C, D, E, right? We want to make sure all these assumptions will be fulfilled, especially from the government's point of view. When the government changes regulation, maybe there is a possibility that the assumption will be different, and then will be effect to the risk profile, and then will be effect everything. Now the government of Indonesia will provide what we call it a sovereign warranty. If some significant strategic or important assumption is changing after the bank financing is already there, after the closing of the financial, after everything, and then the government will step in to give what we call it, ganti rugi itu apa namanya? Ganti rugi itu
compensation.
Compensations to the investors, because of we already in the investment grade. So what's next? Okay, the legal uncertainty. Okay, the government will address the legal uncertainty issues. I think this is the good news of.
Is the policy has been issued by the government? Already issued?
It's already issued for toll roads, for example.
Also?
Toll roads. Toll roads okay. Project. Because of toll road, you know, the 35 years concessions.
Right.
Yeah, it's already.
So I assume, sorry to jump in, so I assume Pak Hiramsyah, that could be assigned to the bank, that compensation, should something happen with the new regulation or whatnot.
Yes.
Okay. But Pak Hiramsyah, I think I represent also before I throw the question to the audience. Look, the government is doing a lot of things, you know, telling us a lot of things, but usually the implementation is not that easy. You know, to fulfill all these requirements is not that easy. So, I mean, you have to make sure that this is really, in order to get the speed, you know, it has to be socialized properly to the industry. Okay, what about the blended financing? What is that?
Yeah, okay. If we talk about the blended financing, sometimes it's very difficult here in Indonesia to make a coordination between so many institutions. You have to dealing with the central bank, you have to dealing with the OJK, you have to dealing with the local government, you have to dealing with the central governments, too many things. But we need the speed. We need the speed. if we talk about the speed, so the government try to simplify all the regulation, try to simplify all the mechanisms. So why that for sort of from the financing point of view, one of the issue is, let's say, to give some blended financings. Yeah.
This is channeled toward private banks or channeled through state banks?
There is two mechanisms. Can goes through the, for example, the bank export of Indonesia, yeah, because of there is a subsidized from the government for some particular issues, but can make it through the private bank or syndications.
Ah, okay. Okay, I'm going to go back to Pak Tigor. Having heard the explanation of Pak Hiramsyah, you know, the government is doing some kind of sovereign guarantee. Does that sound correct to the banking?
No, I think, you know, I mean, I think, again, I think the government's doing a lot of things that's not been done before, try to support this. Now, I think what's important to see is the test cases, right? I mean, in concept, you know, obviously by Hiramsyah, it's great, you know, all these things are progressing. But we want to, you know, I think what people want to see, what happens if it really, let's say you trigger this warranty, for example. So I think it's good if there are some test cases that's out there. And, you know, obviously, if there is a test case that's happening, that means there's something bad that's happening, right, out there. So it's, but I think these kind of things that people will learn through doing. But I think some people might, you know, depending on how it's structured, obviously this is something that could be attractive for not only investors, but also for banks to take that kind of additional sort of risk cover, if you would, you know, on all these sectors. And again, you know, we're a bank which is, you know, we hope to get our money back, plus a little bit of interest, just a little bit. Investors, they hope to make, you know, all these returns, right? So for us, it's, you know, we got to think about all these things a little bit deeper, in more detail, because it's the depositor's money that we're actually lending. But from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of progress in terms of all the good things that the government's doing. You know, we as a bank, you know, obviously, as I said, you know, we've been focused in the sector, and this continues to be our focus going forward.
Now, regarding lending, you talk about financing. Does the bank still do project financing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do.
For hotel?
Yes, for hotels. You know, obviously, it's a different risk when you do construction financing from the project side, aside from an existing cash flow, right? It's a different risk and different profile than all the bells and whistles got to be a lot more tight than what we do when it's an existing hotel with existing cash flow, existing sort of profile. We do it, you know, very, very tight, but we work with the investors to make sure that every single step of the way that we're protected, the investor is protected, the operator is actually aware of what's going on. So I think it's still happening. We still do it, but again, you know, there's a lot more bells and whistles in place for project financing.
If you don't mind, 2 minutes testimony from Pak Ricky, because of he just got the 1.2, how big, Pak Ricky, from the government of Indonesia.
Why not, Pak Ricky? Can we have the mic for Pak Ricky? Maybe 1-2 minutes of testimonial. Pak Ricky is representing Mandalika.
ITDC, not only Mandalika,
sorry.
ITDC.
ITDC. Indonesia Tourism Development
the owners
Corporation.
of Nusa Dua and Mandalika.
Okay, that's good. Pak Ricky, please, maybe can share with us.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity for me to speak as well. So from an investment point of view, in terms of what ITDC has just recently achieved is we've managed to secure 2 large investment contracts, I want to say. The first one is with a company called Vinci. They are a French, one of the largest French contracting concession holder companies. They do a lot of real estate products, as well as managing, operating, investing into airports as well. And they're actually our first largest investor into the Mandalika, our first largest FDI, I want to say, with an estimated investment of, I think, around $1 billion US. So over the next 10 to 15 years, they're planning to deliver around 2,000 to 2,500 hotel room keys, along with commercial elements, retail space, within an entertainment district within the Mandalika. So it's about 160 hectares or so that they're investing into. Obviously, with that comes a lot of work in terms of getting benefits from the special economic zone. So it's an ongoing process, really, but the system seems to be working so far. They're very happy with regards to the progress that we're making. So at the same time, towards the end of the year, they're actually going to be groundbreaking on 2 hotels with around 300 hotel room keys at the Mandalika as well. Outside of that, the government has also been very supportive in securing an MOU deal with Qatar investment authorities as well. I think they're pledging around $500 million US or so, spread though across several destinations amongst the top 10. And we're hoping, obviously, that Mandalika would be also part of that investment scheme as well. So from an overall support that we can see from the government, obviously, and with the financing that they're also bringing to the table as well, it seems to be working very well for us. Yeah, we're doing amazing progress on that side.
Okay. Well, thank you, Pak Riki.
Thank you, Pak Riki.
Thank you, Pak Riki. So before I throw to the audience, one last question to Pak Tigor. Pak Tigor, you said hotel is a long-term investment.
Yep.
From bank, for CIMB Niaga, how would be the ideal tenure of investment loan given to a hotel?
Ideal from our perspective or from the investment? From our perspective, yeah, you pay as soon as possible. But for usually the tenure is about 8 to 10 years in a construction of a...
It takes more than that, Pak Tigor. It takes more than that.
Right. But I think usually what we do is we want to make sure that we don't take all the risk.
Okay.
It's got to be shared. It's a partnership with the sponsor, right?
That means the composition between equity and bank loan, there should be a acceptable
Correct.
ratio, right?
Correct.
What will be the acceptable ratio?
Anywhere from, I think 60-70% bank financing is at least minimum. 60 to 70% bank financing is usually what we look for at a minimum. You know, obviously that shows the commitment of the sponsor. We don't want, someone who just puts in even 0 or 5% or whatever. That doesn't show the commitment of the sponsor. I think it's very, very important. Again, as I said, it goes through many, many cycles, right? Through 8 to 10 years. Hopefully it's just one cycle, but it could be 2, it could be 3, right? So,
understood.
So I think, someone who could really bear through this,
now,
cycle, I think it's important. Someone doesn't agree with me.
All right. So we have got around 7 to 8 minutes left. So I would like to throw to some question maybe from the audience. I would like to open Q&A session. May we have, I have maybe 3 questions first from the audience. Anybody? Vario here. And I see Eric Levy, usually he asks a lot of questions. Hi, Eric. Wait, you're second after Vario. So you're second. Anybody, any third one? Okay, maybe let's start with Vario first.
Yeah, this is for Pak Tigor. There are some fundamental challenges. I mean, you presented Pak Hiramsyah about the ease of doing business and everything, but there is one fundamental challenge in Indonesia when you're doing real estate or hotel development, which is interest rate.
Yeah.
Right. How do you see the trend of interest rate going into? Because that's one of the. Getting the yield, getting the return depends on that. Especially you're talking about 60-70% financing. Yeah.
Thank you. But should I answer it right? How
Yes,
do you
please.
want to? Okay.
Yes, please.
You never ask a banker without. You never leave a banker without asking about interest rate. Right? How do you lower interest rate? I think it's a good sort of question, Mario, because if you look at comparatively to other sort of economies, our interest rates is actually relatively higher if you compare to whatever our neighboring countries, whether Malaysia, Thailand, or Singapore, and whatnot. However, there's a couple of things actually. One is, unfortunately, given the situation globally and what's going on with the Fed and so forth, I think it's undeniable that we're going to be seeing a rise in interest rates, right? I think as a global scenario, we've been on drugs over the past decade with the QEs all over the place, that we are beginning to think that the previous decades of near zero interest rate in the US is normal. Actually not, right? That's not the normal rate. So it's, as it is rising, unfortunately, many economies in the globe also, especially emerging markets, will have to rise. So that's why there's 125 basis points uptick by BI over the past 6 to 8 weeks. Having said that, I believe when we look at, not only in hotel industries, but also in other industries also, we believe that the return on equity in this part of the world is still relatively better than return on equities in many developed countries who's got much lower interest rates. The return of equity in developed worlds takes into account all these lower financing, lower sort of legal risk, lower bureaucracy, sort of red tape and everything. So if you put up everything together, actually including the cost of financing, I see my clients, a lot of them are still happy with the returns that they get. A lot of I complain all the time as well, but everyone complains all the time about legal uncertainties. They complain about what's happening with the red tape and everything. But if we ask around the room who would not invest in Indonesia, I bet none of us would raise our hands, right? Why? Because the returns are it's risk and return type of thing. So maybe a long-winded answer to your question, but I think it's sort of into the equation. And if we look back, since the history of this republic for 73 years, this interest rate actually has been probably the lowest, despite the 125 basis points increase, probably the lowest in this republic's history. If we recall, before the crisis in 1998, when Indonesia was one of the Asian tigers, everyone was used to SBI at about 12–13%. That's the risk-free rate. Everyone was used to it. We're just humming. We're just, we crashed at the end. I'm not saying that we'll crash, but I'm saying that this republic has been used to this kind of interest rates, and things are still humming.
Yes. And I think we as business people, we always complain to the bank, right?
Of course.
When the rate was 14%, we said too high, one lower.
Of course. I always complain to the banks too, don't worry.
All right. Okay, Eric, your question, please.
So that's why I jumped right in. For Hiramsyah question, you're working and focusing on accelerating progress in new destinations or evolving destinations outside of Bali. Garuda is a national carrier, and I understand the ownership of Garuda isn't totally through the government. There are private interests in it as well. But when one thinks of a national carrier, you think of it promoting the nation's interests, which in this case would involve helping new destinations come up to speed and to grow. I'm sure the ministry's had conversations with them before, but I'm just curious, are you talking with them, or what type of involvement could we see them playing? What are your thoughts with Garuda as national carrier to help? Some of the markets already have international airports with immigration facilities, Labuan Bajo, Lombok, of course. Small increases in lift in these destinations mean a lot for the properties that are there, and with more lift and the success the properties will achieve with that lift, it would attract more private investment in other hotels. Can we expect something from these conversations with Garuda to help stimulate the growth of these markets?
Okay. A very good questions, Eric. Eric is my best friend since during the Bali Nirvana Resort. Okay, the government of Indonesia, of course, we working very closely with Garuda, Citylinks. It's not only Garuda, but all the local airlines. But we have to be frank with you that if we want to speed up our growth story about accessibility, especially the air accessibility, we just can't only give the opportunity to the domestic local airlines. So why that my minister fly to Singapore, sit down with the SQ, CEO, Scoot, yeah, Tony Fernandez, for example, yeah, Emirates, because of the market is so big. Right. And we don't think that this market is just only for the domestic or local airlines. But of course that we always talk first with the Garuda and the local airlines about our plans, because of we believe that they know better compared to the other airlines. And number two, to support especially the new destinations, the government of Indonesia try to learn from other countries that we will give so many incentives, direct, indirect, especially for example, like give some direct incentive for the airlines, for promotions, how to make their fare is lower. This is that we're working very hard with the others, not only with Garuda, but with the others airlines.
All right, I think time is up, but before we close this session, I would like to have maybe each of you very short closing statement, and maybe from Pak Hiramsyah, and after that, yes, Pak Tigor. Please, Pak Hiramsyah.
Thank you, Pak Budi. Okay, the good things that we see all the enthusiastic from all you guys. The bad things that we are in the situations that the rupiah currency is not good. So everybody asking me, this is the good timing to invest or not. I'm working for Bank Niaga and for the Bakri groups from 1989, and one of my responsibility is handling crisis, the 1998 crisis, the global financial crisis in 2008. So I know very well about what's going on at that time, the subprime mortgage, and the 2018 crisis. So my first question is, for example, like to Pak Tigor, or to anybody that who make investment in 1998, you are happy or not when you make an investment in 1998, what I believe is the worst crisis happened in our country? All the answer is, I'm very happy. Asking the questions to CIMB, to Hasanah, Pak Asman, oh, I'm very happy. It's one of my profits investment. So if 1998, the worst crisis ever, make a good investment for everybody, so why that you have to be worried with today's crisis? So that's my explanation. So be happy, don't worry, yeah, about today's situations. I just learned from Warren Buffett and especially from Jack Ma. It's time to buy. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Hiramsyah. And Pak Tigor, your closing statement.
Just want to thank you to Manaf and Pak Budi, Pak Hiramsyah for being here. I think it's a great conference to exchange ideas between all the industry players. And we are, again, as I said, you were focused on the sector as one of our key areas going forward, and we'd be happy to talk to people who want to be our partners going forward.
All right. Well, with that, let's have a big applause to Pak Hiramsyah and Pak Tigor. Thank you very much, and I'll give it back to the organizer. Thank you.